Good evening. Here we are again, once more on a very bright, sunny, somewhere in the world Tuesday evening. So welcome to our support sessions. It's good to have you here. My name's Richie Clapson, which you may or may have not have guessed. Some of you might not know that. And I'm here with the other half of a property CEO, Ian Child. Ian, give him a wave. Yeah, good stuff.
There's a wave.
Yeah. Look, it's great to have you here. So what exactly are support sessions for those that don't know? Well, these are regular 45 minutes. Yeah, 45 minutes. We'll be out of here within an hour, absolute tops, but hopefully we aim to stick to 45 minutes. But trouble is you lot ask too many questions, so it's your fault, it's not ours. But we'll definitely be done by 8, just in case there's something on the TV at 8 o'clock that you want to watch. And it's all about injecting a little bit of positivity into what's happening right now, isn't it, Mr. Child, sir?
It most certainly is. And of course, some of you, if you're new to proceedings here, might not be familiar with exactly who we are. So let me tell you a little bit about us. Basically, we train people how to become property developers. So we're not talking kind of shopping centers and stuff like that. We're talking mainly sort of first-time developers looking to do smaller scale projects. And our job is to help them make sure they find the best opportunities and that they don't make any expensive mistakes. And we decided to run these sessions for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it's because, well, we may be able to give people some tips that could help them protect their livelihoods in what is some pretty difficult times right now. But we also know that obviously we've got this recession looming around the corner, and it's actually the perfect time for people to prepare for the opportunities that are inevitably going to come up as we go forward. And what we've learned over quite a few years is that the most successful people are kind of taking action now at the start of a recession rather than waiting for events to unfold.
Of course, if we can't answer any questions and we don't give any useful tips, at least you can have a bit of fun for the next 45 minutes. So that can't be bad, can it? And, as we say, there's a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of anxiety out there. This is half full territory. The glass is half full within this show, okay? We're not belittling what's going on out there. I always got to say this. It's important we say this. And I know probably some of you have been touched by this, and some of you may well be connected to people that's lost loved ones or even more directly yourself. I understand that, appreciate that, but right here, right now, this is going to be a bit of positivity, and the feedback we're getting is that's what you guys love. You love the fact that actually this is what we're doing in here. So anyone who's struggling, anyone in business, anyone in property, that's what we're here for. We're happy to take questions, so please put questions in the box, because if there's no questions, we just go. That's it. We just shut off, and we have to go and watch, I don't know, EastEnders or something like that, whatever's on the telly. So please put questions in, save us from the soaps. As we go, put them in, and we'll do our best to answer them. Now, before we start though, competition time. Those that were here Saturday, and some of you were, and I guess we ought to just check, actually, we could be rabbiting on here for a couple of minutes. Give us a wave, make sure you can actually hear and see us, please. Put your hands up.
There we go. Yes. Look at that. See your waves.
Good stuff. Good job I asked that. You imagine if we'd done 45 minutes and no one could hear us. That would be quite amusing, wouldn't it? But anyway.
Very good, man.
Competition time. Saturday, we said, look, we set this thing up. We called it support sessions. In fact, actually, I've not even got that on the screen at the back. Hang on a minute. Look, I've got to get the right thing up. There we go. So we did, totally disorganized. We did call this support sessions for the obvious reasons that we wanted to support people. We wanted to help people. But the feedback we're getting is that everyone loves this and they want us to carry it on. So we will carry it on, and we carry it on beyond the point of it being a support session. And so we've asked for some help, because we're not that clever, and we really need a name for this. And maybe it's support sessions, maybe we leave it as that, or we put it something else. So whatever it is, please give us your suggestions. I know some people put some in Saturday. We've had some emailed in. The most ridiculous one, and it's name and shame. Ritesh is on this evening. Ritesh, you are potentially going to get banned, because Ritesh suggested we should call it the Ian Child Show.
I like Ritesh. I think he's made some excellent suggestions over the course of the whole series of these support sessions, and yeah, I think I'm going to register him myself for future sessions.
Ritesh, you're a bad judge there, bad judge of character, but that's okay. We'll run with it. So any apart from the Ian Child Show, any other suggestions would be most welcome, and then you can stay on these sessions. We won't deregister you. So please give us some suggestions, and there is a prize. Might not be that good.
Oh, there is a prize. Yeah, and it's a prize worth having, actually. It's a secret prize.
Oh, okay.
It's a secret prize.
Excellent. So yeah, so there's a prize in this. So please do put that in. So hopefully you guys have had a good day. It's been raining. We've had a good day. We've had a great team meeting today, didn't we? Cracking on, getting stuff done.
I mean, actually, Ritesh has just put, he was going to suggest Claphild, which I think is the hybrid of our names. Although at the team meeting today, I couldn't help noticing that the Clapson clan is multiplying. We had yet another junior Clapson attend the thing, so I'm completely outnumbered by your canine friend, the one and only Benji.
I don't have a dog. Ian's going to start telling people that I have a dog.
Every time we have a team meeting, there's this little face pokes up in the corner of my screen. You're in denial about the whole dog loving thing, and then Benji pops up, and now it's kind of we can't have a team meeting without him. He's like your little mascot.
Benji is not my dog. Joe Bolson has said Benji is very cute, though. Yeah, I guess if I'm allowed to use the word cute, he is cute. He's actually Taylor's dog. Taylor works for us, in charge of our social media. She happens to be my daughter-in-law. So I guess in a strange sort of way that Benji, I don't know what sort of dog is it? It's a little thing, isn't it?
It's a little thing. Yeah, it's brown.
It's a little dog thing. And so I guess in a way it's my grandson. Bizarre, isn't it? It's a bit odd.
No, having seen the two of you together, I can absolutely get that thing. It's yeah. Isn't Benji the Dulux dog? Says Ritesh.
No, it's not.
He's definitely not. This is not a version of a Dulux dog that you've got.
No, but he has got a lot of followers, hasn't he? I'll take it.
Yes. So that was quite embarrassing as well. When we added up the number of followers we had compared to the number of followers that Benji had, it was not a competition.
Benji has, I think, something like 2,000 followers on Instagram or something. So there you go. So yes, he's my dog. That's it. Someone famous. Let's have him on my side.
Have you got a picture of Benji? Debs, no, we're not encouraging this whole. I don't know why I mentioned it actually. Don't know why I mentioned it. And Chris has also got a Benji, which is a Yorkie.
I know what he is. It's a Cavapoo. It's a Cavapoo.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say you knew what a Yorkie was, which doesn't surprise me. But
no, I don't.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try. I think I'm going to have to fight fire with fire and bring my own dog into the fray, who doesn't have an Instagram account, has no followers, and is completely rubbish. But I feel that I'm just getting outnumbered.
Oh, so the Clapson family dog, I'm now going to adopt him, has got 2,000 followers, and the Child family dog, which goes by the name of
Teddy.
Teddy's how many followers?
It's kind of a round number. He hasn't
Come on,
tried
let's crack on. Enough of this silliness. We've got a whole crowd of you on this evening, so good evening. Chris, hello. Claudia, hello. Clive, Debs, Edward. Oh, it goes on here. Keen, Ranjit from Property Investor News is on. Hello, Ranjit. Ranjit's obviously advertising Property Investor News. I can see what he's done there by putting that in the box. Smart move, Ranjit. Raj, Richard, Ritesh, obviously, Romazon, Simon, Vijay Vaz, Gearderus, I think I might have got that wrong. Gavin, Emily. Wow, a whole stack of you on. People say good evening, hello. Me again, says Joe. Yes, hello, Joe. Name for sessions, belt and braces. Okay, maybe so. How about a hair today and still hair tomorrow? Jacqueline, hair jokes are not necessary. Leanne Wheeler says hello, Leanne. Excellent, good stuff. Right, shall we get straight into some questions? Please put some questions in. Let's get away from this silliness. It's 7:10. We need to start answering some questions. So we have a couple of questions in already. So we missed a couple of questions on Saturday, and we had some questions in this week. For PD rights, does the mezzanine floor area count in the total area? So I'm building a mezzanine floor, and I'm assuming this is for an industrial unit, because I have shortlisted 3 projects where the area is exceeding 500 square meters if the mezzanine area is counted. Okay, interesting. That's from Mansour on Saturday. So does the mezzanine floor area count? Probably not. Okay, probably not. You need to go back and have a look at the planning history of it. And as always, what we're here to try and do is point you in the right direction as well, to always the right professionals. And in this case, planning consultant. Mansour, make sure you deal with this with your planning consultant to get the right answer. He says, yes, it is light industrial. Mansour, thank you. So here, normally these mezzanines are often put in outside of planning. They don't need a planning implication to put them in. So these things are built inside, and so they don't always count towards the 500 square meters. But they might. So you need to have a check of what's registered there, what's the building known to have. The other thing which is quite common is actually, because the mezzanine probably, if I'm honest, Mansour, probably won't suit, and it might do, but often it won't suit the reconversion to a residential scheme, assuming that's what you want to do. Quite often you're going to take it out and you're going to put new structure in. So you go back to the original scheme, because mezzanines are often temporary structures. The case you get quite often, and this is probably useful for a lot of people out there who may be considering changing an industrial building, is that quite often you've got this sort of big height, this sort of 5-6 meters height, maybe more, that you can put an extra floor in. And there, that definitely doesn't count. That extra floor is not in the original 500 square meters. It's all down to the subtle wording. I don't have it right in front of me right now, you'll be surprised, but the wording talks about the exact wording talks about the area of the existing building. I don't think it quite says existing, but it's a bit of a subtlety. I remember talking to a planning consultant about it once, and he said, well, yeah, but it doesn't say that, or it doesn't say this, so this is how we interpret it. As always, little shades of grey, so you want to be talking to your planning consultant, but generally I think you'll find that the existing footprint is generally the ground floor of the building, not additional floors that you put in, which I think is really important, and probably in the question that you've asked, Mansour, not in the case of an existing mezzanine. That's unlikely. Hopefully that's answered that question. Let's crack on with another one, because you love questions being answered. Mansour said, thank you, no problem at all. Hopefully we've answered that. Claudia put a question in on Saturday. Claudia's here this evening. Hello, Claudia. Good evening to you. She says, I'm a project manager. There's Claudia touting for business as well. You can see what's going on here tonight. We've got Ranjit from Property Investor News putting out there that he's from Property Investor News because he wants me to say Property Investor News. Ranjit, that's a tenner you owe me there. And Claudia says, I'm a project manager, and I was always I always recommend to put 25% contingency in for conversions and 10% for new builds. Would you add an extra contingency in given the current market? Interesting, Claudia. I'm going to actually go against what you suggest here, although you say you're a project manager. So nice to be a bit controversial, especially kicking off on the second question, but why not? I actually don't think you should be putting in 25% contingency for conversion. I think if you put in a contingency of 25% for conversion, you're going to get a lot of deals just not stacking. The approach I think you need, if you are potentially 25%, a quarter of your cost at risk, then you need to do something different, okay? And then I strongly suggest you need to do a two-stage tender approach, okay? Can't even speak. Two-stage tender approach. You try saying that when you've had a couple of whiskies. So the thing there is that the first stage would be a strip out contract. So if there's a concern that there's going to be unknowns that we're going to find when we strip out the building, take off the walls, have a look, see what's going on, take off the finishes, then we would do that initial contract. We'd let that to a contractor. We'd expose everything in the building, and then we'd see what the risks were, and we'd de-risk it. We need to de-risk it down to 10%, because pricing in 25% contingency, in my view, on a commercial project, maybe that works at lower end residential stuff, but in terms of what I would call developments and bigger development schemes, and you know where we operate, we're talking about 5 to 20 unit type schemes. You don't want a 25% contingency. The other problem is that that's a big risk factor, and when you're looking at that, and when funders are looking at that, they're going to be, well, you don't know your numbers, you're hedging your bets by 25%, you don't look like you've got control over this scheme. So I don't think 25%. I think you need to re-engineer your project. You need to re-evaluate your contractual approach and maybe consider two-stage to get that down to 10%. Would you add extra contingency in the current market? That's an interesting one. I think potentially, I definitely have some money up my sleeve if I was going to procure a deal now. But most people know my current thoughts is do not buy a deal now. Do not offer. You know, if you really must, well, you know, don't talk to me because I don't want to know, because you know, the market's going to be going down. It's a very difficult time to offer unless you know you've got an absolutely cracking deal. That is going to be very, very difficult to manage. So yeah, maybe have a bit of extra in when the market picks back up, because we don't actually know where construction costs are going to go. But I'd be more looking at that not in contingency. I might be just looking at that in my overall comfort on profit. Again, crank up your contingency too much, and then your investors might be thinking, your commercial investors and underwriters might be thinking you've not got control of what you've got here.
I think the other thing, just to come in there, Rich, is that it's kind of, when we're thinking about crunching the numbers here, it's a kind of end-to-end process. So the starting point is like a sales funnel. We put the stuff in the hopper at the top,
yep,
and then we're kind of critiquing it as it goes down. And as soon as we can get rid of a deal that doesn't stack, we kind of toss it out, and we're only interested really in focusing on the ones that kind of really make it down to the bottom. And those are the ones where we kind of sweat the thing. We get some firmer numbers. We do a lot of running around to make sure we get the numbers as firm as we can. So I think one of the things we've got to be careful of here is there's a bit of a balancing act that we're playing right at the start. We want to make sure that we're chucking out deals that just don't stack at all, that are kind of a million miles away, but we're keeping in stuff that's got a fighting chance. And so if we're simply whacking in a whole load of contingency at the start, then, as Richie says, essentially you end up in a situation where deals just don't stack. You never get to the point where you end up being able to kind of put the laser focus on some of those costs. And so I would be just making sure that you've got the balance right there. I absolutely agree. We're in a place at the moment where there's a lot of uncertainty. So having an additional contingency could be prudent, but what's going to happen is you're going to end up firming up those numbers as the deal progresses further down. So you might want to think about, in terms of where you factor in contingency, maybe doing it slightly further down the funnel so that you don't end up throwing out some potentially good deals.
And Claudia, you put a follow-up comment there, 25% on the build cost. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking it is. So I take all my comments into account. You shouldn't be having 25% on build costs. I think that's going to cause you a problem. I was just interested. I looked back and I flicked up there. Chris said he had his wee Yorkie. He's smart. He's actually watching the show apparently. So hey, that's cool. We've got a wee Yorkie watching the show. Good stuff. Excellent. Right. Let's have another question. Where are we? This is a question so a few people email questions in for us, so that's excellent. So please keep them coming, and obviously put them in the chat box as we go tonight. This is from Deborah. Ian, here's one for you. You can answer this. What 3 core things do I need ready to start my development business? That's from Deborah. What 3 core things?
Okay, I guess it depends on what kind of level you're looking at here. But if we're talking about sort of high level stuff that you need before you start going out and actually effectively looking at deals and trying to progress with anything, I think the starting point for me is always a brand, whether that's your business brand or your personal brand. Because one of the challenges that, particularly if you're starting out as a new developer, we want to make sure we're talking to a lot of people here that really for whom our credibility is really important. They might be people that are lending you money. They might be people that are going to work with you, invest in you, become an advisor to you, and maybe on a commercial level lend money to you. So it's really important that we're able to give people a lot of comfort in our credibility. Now, of course, if we're doing this from scratch, perhaps we don't have specific track record in property development, but of course our team will do, and we have track record as an individual, whether that's as a business person, somebody that's had a career, because one of the beauties of property development is, of course, you're kind of leveraging some skills that other people have got in terms of architects and project managers and structural engineers and so on. You don't need to learn the same skills that they have, but you do need to have some of these kind of CEO skills, as we think of them, that glue all those things together, because you're effectively running a business. So I think having that brand in place at the start is critical. And I say it's a mistake that a lot of people often make, is that they're in a bit of a hurry to get out and start networking and telling the world about what it is that they want to do. But then, of course, in this day and age, people invariably kick the tires. So they might have a lovely meeting with you or a phone call, and then, of course, when they get back to the office or they go home, they'll try and find your website. And if there isn't one, or there's nothing about you at all, or what they do see looks, pretty amateur and perhaps not congruent with the story that you were telling, the elevator pitch that you gave them, then that can be a real own goal, and it just sows those seeds of doubt that are completely unnecessary. Because if you've got a good story to tell, then and you've got your ducks in a row and you've done it properly, then your brand should be able to support you rather than act against you. So I think getting the brand in place is really important, kind of almost before you start doing a lot of the hard yards. I mentioned the team. That's probably the second thing. So it is a highly leveraged model. We aren't laying any bricks. We don't need to know everything about planning, law. We've got a team of people who do this stuff for us, and they're all readily available. But we've got to make that happen. We pay them. They get a fee for what they do. But it's our job to find the right people and make it into a team, that kind of functions properly. So there we're kind of, as I said, leveraging some skills that I think a lot of people have generally when it comes to organizational skills, people skills, being able to keep relationships and get people to perform. A lot of those generic skills are what you need basically as a CEO rather than as a property developer per se. So the team is kind of a fairly big part of the equation when it comes to what you're doing. And it's interesting when, for example, commercial lenders look at a deal, whether they're going to lend you money, they don't look at it as in a deal in the same way as if you were going to get a mortgage on your home. For sure, they look at you and they look at your credibility and the boxes that you tick, but they also look at the deal and they critique the deal. They also critique the team, and they check that the people that are on your team are capable of delivering the project in their view. So there's a whole raft of things that those things add to your credibility, but the team really is the kind of engine that makes the whole thing work, and you're the CEO running it. And I guess I probably would say the third thing, which is about knowledge. I think a lot of people have put off property development because it sounds like it might be a bit risky and you could make some expensive mistakes, which is entirely true. You can make expensive mistakes, and like lots of things, property and business generally, where there's risk, there's an upside and a downside. What you want to do is to do two things, I think. One is to absolutely, as best as you can, mitigate against the downside. One of the things that is so powerful is when you've got experience, you tend to avoid the pitfalls, and it's the same in any job, any career, and in life generally. And of course, that applies to property development as well. So if you're doing your first development and you haven't got anybody else to guide you, or you're kind of working it out as you go along, there's a strong likelihood that you could fall down some holes. So getting yourself educated would avoid that. But I think the other thing that people underestimate with knowledge and training specifically is about opportunity. One of the things that we see kind of day in, day out is that sometimes with inexperience, you're not always able to see for sure that the holes, but sometimes you don't see the opportunities as well. So where we're looking at a deal where you're thinking I could build 5 flats here, but if somebody could show you how to build 6, it makes a big difference to your outcome. So again, good training and good knowledge should be able to give you that advantage as well. So it's not just avoiding the pitfalls, it's also making the most of the opportunities. So I think those 3 things together are probably the 3 magic ingredients when it comes to launching a career in property development on an unsuspecting world.
I just scrolling back as I do when you're talking, and I'm just looking through other stuff. And by the way, Debs, hopefully that answers your question. Edward actually said it was him that put the suggestion of the Ian Child show, and he says laugh out loud. Edward, you're banned. Out. Go on, turn off.
So does this mean that there's 2 people that have voted for?
Well, I might have got that wrong. Maybe Ritesh didn't vote for that. Ritesh might be allowed back in. So, but I'll check the details. I'll check what they put in the box just in case they try and fudge that. So, yeah, keeping an eye on that. Really, not happy. But it's okay, we can work with it. At least the Clapton dogs, you know, got 2,000 followers.
Well, it's going to be the Benji
Hurrah!
Clapton,
Ritesh says, hurrah, he's back in. Okay, good. Another question here. Let's have a look. Sorry, just flicking through these. Richard, from Richard, here we go. What is Section 106 payments? Well, they're payments, Richard, that are 106. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. Didn't really answer it, did it? Richard, 106 payments, if I could describe it in very simple terms, is a tax from the local authority. It's a bit like it's a community infrastructure levy payments. It's similar things to that. So basically, the council have the ability to charge developers money for doing things in the area to contribute to the community. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. Sometimes you can be paying contributions to upgrading of roads. So let's say you are going to build a new development, you're going to put a number of houses into an area, and you have to upgrade one of the local roads. You might get a 106 payment to have to pay for that. Maybe you're going to put more traffic onto a roundabout, and you're going to have to alter the roundabout or put some additional traffic lights in, so you'll be paying for that. You could be paying towards the community centre or a new community centre. You could be paying towards the park. So 106 payments can almost be anything. Just to be aware, though, they are a legal requirement, and often they're paid up front. Okay, so they're part of a planning condition, and part of the planning condition is that you agree to pay a 106 payment, and you have to pay quite often those up front before you do anything. So pretty much a tax, in simple terms, that the local authority are going to put on you for you doing what you want. They want a bit of something out of you. So yeah, it's a tax dressed up in all sorts of ways. The key thing here is when you speak to your planning consultant again, is have a chat with them and see if they can give any guidance on whether there's likely to be any 106 contributions of any sort within that area. I see Rich has actually put 3 questions in, so let's answer all 3 of these. If you're converting a pub and there is residential accommodation for the landlord upstairs, do we only consider the converted area downstairs in the square meterage community infrastructure levy calculation? I'll be honest, Richard, I don't know the direct answer to that one, and I'm quite pleased because I don't profess to be a planning consultant. You know, God forbid if I was a planning consultant, I'd be quite geeky. So, Richard, I'd suggest you want to just clear that one with your planning consultant exactly. And the interesting thing is, as well, as always, there's an interpretation of the rules. So different local authority planning officers will interpret the rules differently. I don't know if there's a very clear definition for pubs and landlord space upstairs, or whether it comes entirely under the pub, you know, the pub demise, as it were, in terms of planning, and then hence when you turn it into C3 residential, it comes under the community infrastructure levy. There's a logic which says it wouldn't, but I'll be honest, I've never converted a pub. It's not an area I've looked at. I've gone into detail. So the best thing there is, Richard, as always, and this is for everyone, is you've got to have good professionals alongside you. If you want to get into development, you know, we were talking about it earlier with Debs and giving advice. If you want to get into development, have good people around you. Have good planning consultants that you can drop a quick message through and say, what about this, what about that? And they can give you a response. And the third question for Richard, let's make sure we crack through this one as well. Is there a general rule of thumb for estimating the gross internal area of a building from knowing the footprint of the building, i.e. without physically viewing the building, which obviously we can't do at the moment? Richard, I assume what you're asking there is what's the wall thickness of a building? So that obviously can vary. So what you can do on Google Maps clearly is have a look and drop some pins around the outside and measure the area of the building externally. Typically, a wall could be about 300, maybe 400 with a bit of cladding, depending what it is as a commercial building. So if you took off 400 millimeters all the way round, so effectively that's sort of 800 off of the one dimension and 800 off the other, that would give you a reasonable guide. Obviously, you've got internal walls and all bits and pieces there. So you know, but you're talking about gross internal area, you're not talking about net. So we're not taking off toilets if we're looking at commercial spaces, lift areas, communal areas, that sort of thing. And that's just the point of interest. When commercial agents quote a net internal area, that often doesn't include the full area of an office building that you could convert. So it will potentially exclude toilets and communal areas and lifts and so on, which you may get rid of and reconfigure. Hopefully that answers very quickly those questions for you, Richard. Let's have a look. Chris, as a follow-up, are there national guidelines for 106 seal charges, or is it determined at council level? Pretty much at council level, Chris. You can, for seal payments, you can't look up 106 contributions. I'm pretty certain you can't, because they can vary, and there's almost a point of negotiation. But seal, community infrastructure levies, each council generally publish on their websites. I'd have to say you've got to dig a bit to find it, but they're generally published on the websites, the pounds per square metre that you're going to have to pay for creating additional residential space. Hopefully that's answered those. Good stuff. All right, I'm just making sure I tick these off as we go, because we've got a lot of stuff coming in tonight. Vijay says, hi Vijay, what is meant by the curtilage around a property? Vijay, that's the area of the property. That's pretty much the development site. So if you have a site, and I'm going to demonstrate with a piece of paper. Here's my site, and just within the middle of that sits a building. They talk about curtilage. They're talking about the whole site. Generally, that's what you would refer to. So you'll be talking about the site area overall. So if you're talking about, as your terms here, the curtilage around a property, they might say the curtilage of the development, or the development site, or of the site. That's pretty much the whole site, the site boundary of what you'll be looking at. Quick one, hopefully that's answered that.
Oh. You got one in here from Clive. I think it's probably one for you, Rich. I've been keeping in touch with my private investors, but I'm having a bit of trouble convincing them that property development is a sound investment given the current uncertainty in the economy going forward. They're wavering slightly, and I'm keen to keep them on board so that I can confidently make offers when the time is right. Can you suggest any good strategies that you can recommend to keep them interested? So private investors may be getting a little wobbly given the uncertainty in the market.
No, Clive, not really any suggestions there, I'm afraid. Yeah, Clive, I'll answer that in 2 secs just to keep up to track. Chris Phillips says, thanks very much in terms of the 106. No problem, Chris, at all. And Vijay says, cool, thanks. So that was the curtilage one. Vijay, happy to help. Clive, yeah, okay. In terms of keeping private investors happy, I think at the moment, if you think about it, if you're trying to ask for investment now, that's going to be a tricky thing, because you're going to ask for someone for investment in a market that's falling. That's never a good thing. So do you fancy investing in this? But by the way, it might go down and it could be cheaper next week. Now, that's an element of risk. And generally, investors are a little bit risk adverse. Okay, they're not completely risk averse. Otherwise, they would be just investing in gold or bonds or whatever. So they have an element of risk mitigation they want. If you ask them to invest in a falling in a product, if we can call it that, in a falling market, they're going to have an element of concern. So you're going to have a job convincing them now. And to be honest, I wouldn't bother. So this is my advice: is wouldn't bother trying to convince them to invest. What I would do is I would build my relationship with them, okay? And you need to accept with them that at the moment you don't know where the market's going. So it's much better, I would suggest, Clive, to say to that investor, "Wow, things are tough. I tell you what, yeah, look, let's just keep in touch. I don't know where things are going at the moment, and so clearly we're not looking for investment right now." But I can tell you, when this thing bottoms out, and it will, and I'm keeping an eye on it, it's going to be some interesting times, because, for us as developers, this is me pretending I'm role playing now, Clive. Hopefully you get this. So, for me, as a developer,
what role are you doing now?
Me, I'm Clive.
Okay,
I'm
right.
Clive talking to his private investors. Clive gets it. Clive,
you're going to do the accent.
Yeah, Clive, give me a wave if you actually know what I'm doing, what I'm talking about. Clive's not waving. Clive's not waving.
Nobody's waving.
Deb's waved. Deb knows what I'm talking. Oh, I think Clive doesn't know how to wave, so he'll probably end up typing it in or something like that. Everyone else is waving, so that's great. So I should carry on. So Clive, if he's talking to his investor friends, will say, or maybe Clive's gone home. Maybe he's just tuned off. So the key thing is that he will be saying to your investors, look, there's going to be a terrific opportunity here when the market bottoms out. And there will be, okay? Because Clive might be saying to his investor, as it bottoms out, we're going to buy properties the cheapest we're ever able to buy them. Potentially, Clive might be saying to his investor, I'm looking at the possibility that the construction cost might be cheaper, but we're going to monitor that. And actually, if the market stabilizes, and interestingly enough, Clive says, I was confused as I have a lot more hair than you. What's the point, Clive? I'm trying to,
I'd have got that in after he'd answered the question, to be fair, Clive, but up to you.
I should carry on. So the key thing is here is that you might then be saying that, okay, I might be able to buy cheaper, I might be able to procure cheaper. And actually, and for those of you that listened on Saturday, we had an estate agent on who was saying his current prediction, albeit that was Saturday, it could change, as he said, next week, week after, was that prices might be 5 to 7.5%, I think he said, down in 18 to 24 months. So they could largely have an element of stabilization. So as a developer, you know, portraying that conversation to your private investors is telling them that this is going to be probably really secure. It's probably going to be better than what it was 6 months ago, but I don't know yet. I'm just going to monitor it. And at this time, Clive, you want to build rapport, okay, which is clearly what you're not doing with me by having a pop at my hair, but that's okay. But it's about building rapport with them and just keeping friendly with them to say, so how are you guys feeling it? You know, what's going on? Have you got young kids? You're homeschooling? Build relationships in this time. Don't be ringing them up every 5 minutes saying, how are you thinking? Any more thoughts on the investment? That's a telephone, by the way. So, you know, just be chatting to them.
This whole thing's gone out of hand, isn't it?
Huh?
This whole gone out of hand.
It's okay. It's okay. This is good advice. So, you know, you want to build this relationship with them. You want to just, you know, find out about them. We talk about this all the time is, you know, if they've got kids, are they driving up the wall? Yeah. You know, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we have a virtual coffee once a week just to chew the fat? And did you see that in the news? And build the relationship, Clive. Right at this moment in time, you're not trying to get their confidence. You know, you can't get their confidence up. Whatever you tell them, and you could be the best salesman in the world, they won't believe you because everything else is going over here. They've got all this noise coming in from the media and you can't convince them. So don't try. Just build the rapport, build the relationship, keep giving that positive language that you as a developer are not going to make the move, and you're not going to make that move until that time, and until you know it's a much stronger position. At the right time, then you can convince them. Ian, anything to add to that little story that I just babbled on about?
Yeah. Is there any particular role you wanted me to play, or should I just
go for it? Just whatever you want.
So yeah, I think Rich's point is a very good one about you never want to be chasing the money with private investors. As soon as you're asking for money, it's kind of that's the wrong way around. What you want to be doing is having a proposition that makes them want to lend to you, rather than one where you're kind of asking them to borrow money, which sounds like it's how does that work? It's as Richie says, it's a big part of that is about rapport, but at the end of the day, people with money want to invest it. That's how they make a profit. So from their perspective, it's just trying to basically back a sensible horse, one that they've got confidence in. And I think what creates that confidence is the fact that you're talking sensibly. So you're not saying, you know, it will be all right, don't worry about the blips in the market. It's like you're taking a very prudent view at the moment. So I think if they're aligned with your thought processes at the moment, but you're keeping that communication going and you're keeping them updated on some of the sentiments in the market and how you think that might affect things in terms of opportunity, then I think they'll be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. They'll be able to see the opportunity that exists that is going to come out the back of this, but also you're taking them on a journey with you. And so when your confidence grows, theirs should grow. Hopefully there's a confidence at that point where you you can agree to move forward. I think there's another couple of things that come into play. One is that if you're borrowing money commercially, then the commercial lender will do their best to rip your deal apart. Their job, they have a team of professionals that do this all day long, simply taking deals and trying to break them. So they'll assume the worst case scenario for various different scenarios, and ultimately, if as a result of that, you know, market tanking, contracting, development costs going through the roof, all sorts of different what if scenarios. And if at the end of that process they lend you the money, then whilst they have the luxury of a first charge on the asset, whereas your private investors won't, you do have the confidence that your deal has been approved, has gone through a pretty stern test and met with approval from the commercial lender. The final bit of advice I'd give with regards to particularly pledges. So the way in which we tend to get private investment is through not necessarily having specific opportunities and then getting the money. It quite often is about cultivating those relationships, building that rapport, and then basically having a bank of individuals that you can then tap into when you need money for an investment. And the idea is to get those guys and girls feeling quite keen and motivated to looking forward to the opportunity that they're going to get to invest in one of your projects. But I would always make sure that you've got more than you need, and particularly in this type of environment, it's often surprising how keen people can be to invest when they don't actually have to sign a check. But as soon as push comes to shove, it can be a different story. And what you don't want to do is to be in a situation where you think you've got all your funding in place from a private lender perspective, and then you can't get it together because two of your investors just at that precise moment have told you that they've got to do something else with the money. So I would always say building up a strong bank of investors where you perhaps got more on tap than you need in terms of the ability to approach people and get the funds that you need for projects is a good way to go. So never stop looking for people who might invest with you.
Great stuff. Remember the question from Debs, 3 core things need to start my development. Debs said fear has previously held us back. So I think that's Debs and a partner there. And she said, with you guys as trainers, we now feel very confident to move forward. Thank you, Ian. That's cool. So no problem at all, Debs. Richard says for his question, well done, guys. Very well put. Or maybe that's the question we've just answered to Clive. Either way, Richard, thank you very much. Okay, question from Leanne. Evening, Leanne. So Leanne and Jacqueline are both here this evening, and that means that Leanne and Jacqueline do not have the kids and they are with their other halves. So excellent, ladies, you have a night off. That's terrific. Clive says thanks for the advice. Leanne's question is, what would you recommend is the best way to find sites? Nimbus, Land Insight, or do you prefer Reala, etc.? What's Reala? Not sure what that one is. That's not a name I know of. But let's talk about Nimbus and Land Insight. Well, let's actually let's roll that back in terms of the best way to find sites. Relationships. That's the best way, Leanne. It really is. Land Insight. Yeah, there's a whole discussion we could talk about tonight. But in the time we have available, let's just touch on very quickly in terms of the best way to get deals. Relationships is it with agents. Okay. They're doing a lot of work for you. You need to be in their black book. You need to be the person that they ring. This comes back to you knowing how to build credibility and a brand and have that confidence. We're just talking about it with Debs there, having the confidence, portraying that confidence to agents. If you can build the relationship in the same way, and I'm not going to do any more role play because you take the mic, but in the same way I did the role play with Clive, talking to his private investors, talk to agents at the moment. Probably a lot of agents that haven't got a lot, and you're not going to buy at this minute because you're not putting offers in, but build those relationships. Now is the time to do that. Get there, have those virtual coffees with them. But as I say, it's rapport. Ask them, what are they doing? Are they homeschooling? What's happening? Are they in a similar position to you? Understand them. Position yourself. That's the best way always to find deals. It's the least effort. But yes, a lot of these portals that exist out there, which will enable you, some of these software packages will enable you to go out and find sites. Having said that, for some people, they're too expensive. Some of these portals are not cheap. Okay, they're not cheap at all. They do different things. Some are quite expensive, some are a little bit cheaper, but anyone out there would really need to really thoroughly evaluate both of or all of the systems and options out there. But rest assured, if you don't have the money or you don't want to invest in those, there are other ways that you can find off-market deals. You've got to start doing things like rooftop surveys and processes, but there's ways that you can do that. So you need actually to have a combined strategy, Leanne. You need to be building those relationships. You also need to be looking direct to vendor and maybe using the tools and the software you said. The interesting thing about all those software packages, all the information that those software packages have is all out there, generally for free. What they do is they save you a huge amount of time by pulling it all together. They are really powerful. We actually use Land Insight ourselves here. It's probably the Rolls Royce. It's quite expensive, but we prefer it. We think it's the best for the minimal stuff that we do. We don't do a huge amount of development, but really, you know, the answer is you don't need it. If you've got plenty of time, you can process all this information yourself. So a combination of two things is really build those relationships out there and start looking a little bit direct.
And there was one point, just a golden nugget that came from the conversation with Andy Fennell on Saturday, which I really liked, which might worth just reiterating in case anybody missed it, was his point about that, and I'm picking up on your point about now is the time to reach out to agents. What he was saying is that, yeah, the junior staff, many of them have been furloughed, maybe they're not in. So the people that are more likely to answer the phone are going to be the senior people that normally quite often you have a difficult time trying to get hold of. And guess what? They're not rushed out off their feet doing viewings or having meetings, or whatever, because there's not a great deal going on. So you've got this luxury of, you'll pick up the phone, there's a fair chance you'll speak to somebody senior and they've got time to talk to you. That sort of perfect storm doesn't really happen very often. So now is a great time to kind of plug into that and kind of get those relationships cemented so that you can get those early notifications and just be at front of mind when deals start happening.
When I was asking about Riala or whatever it was called further up there from Leanne, she says it's like Rightmove. So I didn't know what that was. Well, yeah, those portals are fine, Leanne. The interesting thing is, obviously everyone else is looking at those, so you're in the same boat. The key thing there is you need to know how to sweat the asset. You need to better think out the box. We've got a number of students who have very successfully thought out the box and have tackled stuff that is out there on those portals. And I can see a couple of them on here this evening. Okay, I'm not going to say who they are, but they very successfully looked at stuff that other people have turned away. It's that ability that you need to learn to go, right, I can sweat this asset, I can get more out of it. So those places are really good, but you need to know what you are looking at. Chris said, interested to hear about rooftop surveys. Please could you share about this in a future webinar? Yeah, Chris, we'll try and touch on that a little bit more. I have to say, as a subject, it's something we could probably spend about 3 hours talking about, but yeah, we'll try and touch on that a little bit more at another session. Okay, conscious of time, guys, let's see if we can just get one more question in. Sorry if we've not answered everything. I do apologize, but you know, we try and pick a flavor of stuff. Jacqueline says, is it 100% essential that a non-exec advisor needs to have development background, or could they be a successful business owner? We teach a model here for those that don't know, and some of you won't, so I apologize, but this is about how you get into development, how you can be a developer, and it's all about being a CEO, hence the name, of a development company, and having everything underneath you in a leveraged fashion. And very much part of that is a non-exec advisor that sits alongside you, not a non-exec director, a non-exec advisor. To answer Jacqueline's question, and I'm not going to explain too much more about that for people that aren't aware, I do apologize. We can cover that another time if we need to. But Jacqueline, your question there, because you understand this, is absolutely, Jacqueline, they have to have property knowledge. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about business knowledge, okay? Business knowledge, you have a large element of business knowledge, okay? If you need to substitute some of that, then you can do that. But the non-exec advisor and the model that we teach, that we build, and I know that's why you're asking that question, because yeah, Jacqueline is one of our students here, is very much around property. They are your safety net, your mitigation of risks in property. You need to be able to ask them property questions. They need to be able to call out the architect, the engineer, the project manager, the contractor, when someone's perhaps trying to pull the wool over your eyes. It's absolutely essential, 100%. They have to be development based, okay, for all those reasons. Let alone they will have opportunity to introduce you to professionals. That would be very useful. They'll also have the opportunity maybe to introduce you to deals. So this is not business experience. If you need to substitute that differently, the non-exec in the model is 100% property. Hopefully that's answered that question. Guys, really conscious of time. You know, I'm hopefully it flies. Doesn't it absolutely fly by the time here? So really, hopefully you've enjoyed it this evening.
It's all about role playing.
Yeah, role play. It's great, wasn't it? Keep a listen out for how well the Clapson dog does. Obviously, you know, he's got 2,000 followers, so maybe Jacqueline says, yeah, yes, that has answered my question. Jacqueline, thank you very much at all. We're pleased to help. And Ranjit says, stay home, take care, stay safe. We certainly will do. Hopefully you've all enjoyed it. Let us know if you have. Saturday is our next session, and you guys asked us who you wanted us to bring in. Please let us know in the chat box this evening if there's anyone else you want us to bring on as a guest. So we're getting into a bit of a rhythm on this and getting guests on a Saturday. We've got a commercial agent in on Saturday. We've got Dwayne Walker. Some people might know Dwayne. I've known Dwayne for quite a few years. He is a director and the owner of Primerolds BAS, a commercial agent down on the South Coast. And Dwayne has offered to come in, and we'll throw a few questions at him. So whatever questions you've got, come along on Saturday, 10 o'clock on Saturday. If you haven't registered, the link should be up tomorrow, Ian, shouldn't it? Sometime tomorrow?
If not sooner. If not sooner.
So the link will be up. Please come along and ask Dwayne any questions you've got. And of course, pop in the chat box anything else that you'd like to know, anyone else you'd like us to bring along. So Deb says something about finding a good accountant would be good. That's great, no problem at all. And any suggestions, none of those silly ones about the Ian Child Show, but we genuinely are interested to know what we should call this show, to reach out to more people, to get that wider appeal and to make it appropriate for what we're doing. So please, any suggestions? I hear some suggestions come, or see some suggestions coming in now about what to do. What about the competition? That's what I'm just talking about, Clive. He said, what about the competition? Chris says mortgage broker. Yeah, we can try and bring a broker in. Absolutely. So any suggestions there? And any suggestions for the name, please let us know. I'm going to leave the chat box open for a few minutes after we say our farewell. So please put anything in there. That's it. Another day's done. 1952. You can go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. It's been great. Yeah, the comments coming in. Many thanks. Very informative webinar. Thank you very much, gents. Have a good evening. Thank you very much. Thanks, chap, says Gavin. That was Gideris who said that. Nina says thanks both. That includes you, Ian. So Nina's happy. Nina, you're happy with Ian's input as well. That's great. Cheers, guys. Clive says cheers. Yeah, Clive, cheers. Thanks for taking the mick out of my hair. Look, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.